Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Hi, welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. We just released this wonderful book, The Literary Parrot, as of August 1st. If you haven't purchased a copy, it's on Amazon. tinyurl.com/The Literary Parrot is where you will find it on Amazon. It's also available at poddy.com in India. So today, our fabulous guest is Carlo Parcelli, who is a poet and poetry editor and native Washingtonian, still residing in the Washington, D.C. area. For 25 years, he was mentored by the James Joyce scholar, Dr. Rudd Fleming, at the University of Maryland. His poetics borrow from Pound's cantos and the monologue style of David Jones. He has published 6 books total and over a 55-year career has had dozens of poems and articles appear in journals and anthologies such as Andrew Kudaruski's Exquisite Corpse, The Pearl, Jack Hirschman's Revolutionary Poets Brigade, Science is Culture, and the premier Ezra Pound journal, Make It New. He is Beat Poet Laureate Emeritus from Maryland. Thanks for joining us today, Carlo. How is life treating you?
Pretty good, and thanks for having me. And I hope that your headaches are gone. And
yeah, I think it was weather and sleep related. I had some trouble a little bit with that because the weather was getting really tossy and turny on me, and I was just pressure headaches and stuff. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah. I hope they're not migraines. So they're the worst.
Yeah, those are bad.
And now we have this earthquake in Haiti.
Oh, yes.
I guess it's not as bad as U.S. foreign policy toward Haiti, but it's
of course
pretty bad.
I think Haiti's been treated very poorly in general.
Yeah.
For the past 200, 300, whatever years it's been, quite a bit. And then, of course, we have the Clinton Foundation screwed them too.
Yes.
They're just getting dumped on all the time. It's terrible.
Yeah. Kidnapping Father Aristide twice. Yeah.
Fires in Greece right now. The world's in a dark place right now. It's been in a dark place for a few years now. It seems like we're stuck there. So getting to the poetry, how does the work of Pound and David Jones meet in your own work, and what elements of writing did you borrow from them?
Yeah, that's really the core question. I worked in the canto style for decades, mm-hmm. And it was a natural style for me I probably made a tactical error in the fact that I was basically from a working class background and happened to end up in college because of the draft. And you really need to kind of be of the patrician class to work in the cantos style, because the referential demands are so enormous, and the ambition of the cantos are so enormous. A poem containing history, and I always had to work a job or two, and it was before Google. I tell you, I could have benefited a great deal from Google being able to reference and link things up. The difference between working in the canto style and ultimately what I ended up working in the David Jones, currently in the David Jones monologue style, which is a performance style, which I love to do. Even though I initially, with the Canaanite Gospel, which was my first book in that style, I sought actors to perform the monologues. The difference is that you, with Jones, who really does come out of the high modernist tradition, his editor at Faber was T.S. Eliot. Eliot was really discovered Jones, and of course we know the connection between Eliot and Pound is profound. I'm sure Pound was familiar with Jones' work, but I don't think he commented on it much. But they have a lot in common. Jones wrote 2 epics. One was called In Parentheses, and that was about his experience in World War I. He was in the trenches for 4 years, and he relates his experiences with his fellow soldiers in the trenches, who were mostly from Bow Bells, who were mostly from East End London, or not mostly, but largely. And a lot of, in parenthesis, is written in Cockney. So I have this rare recording of David Jones reading this poem he has called The Fatigue. And he mentions the Cockney in not only in the introduction to that, but also in the book itself. And I was always intrigued by it. So what happens, we're publishing this magazine called Flashpoint, and we've done issues on Louis Zukofsky, Mel Tolson, Ezra Pound, the high modernists. That's the focus. They're not getting a lot of attention. I was operating under the delusion that people didn't read, people like Pound and Olson because they're so referential. And it was difficult for them to understand the poems because they didn't have access to the references. And with the advent of Google, I said, well, high modernism, it's going to blossom. Because now you can look up the references. You know who the Medicis are? Look it up. There you have it. But it didn't. It went exactly the opposite way. People became more insular in their writing, more personal. And I can't really explain why that was. But anyway, we're publishing this magazine, and Georgetown University here in Maryland gets this huge bequeathment of Jones material. So, of course, we go down, the staff and I, we go down to look at the Jones material. And one of the members of our staff is Brad Haas, who's a 20th century poetry scholar, teaches here in Maryland. And he was also a member of the David Jones Society, and he made really yearly pilgrimages to Great Britain, to bookshops and to meet other scholars and that sort of thing. So we learned that because of the Georgetown was bequeathed all of this material, that the David Jones Society was coming here. So we said, well, that's a natural. We'll publish the symposium papers that they're going to hold here. We'll just publish their papers. So we did 2 issues devoted to the papers of that symposium and other papers. Tom Dilworth wrote a brilliant biography of David Jones at that point. So he had material on that sort of thing. It was just a godsend. It was beautiful. And so we published that. And as I'm editing these things, as though I can consider myself an editor of these scholars, I said, I really want to write in that voice that Jones has, that Cockney, and they're both both the Wall and the Fatigue are in the voice of this Roman Principalis, and a crusty guy, career soldier, doesn't want to be anywhere Judea-Perea at the year 33, which is the setting, obvious setting. He doesn't want to be there. He hates being there. He hates the people he's around. They hate him. He wants to be home. And he's a tough old bird. So I wrote a monologue called Severinus in that voice. And I said, well, I like it. So I ended up writing 88 monologues, which became the Canaanite Gospel. And they're all written or intended to be in this kind of Cockney style. And also my interpretation I began thinking in terms of Elizabethan prosody. And it was sort of my interpretation of Elizabethan prosody, because if you read Shakespeare or even Marlowe or Middleton or Dekker or anybody like that, there's things that can be said in Elizabethan prosody that are very economical, and they have what Pound called phanopia, which is different layers of meaning, all taking place at once, and in a brilliant kind of way. And I can't think of any other word for it than that. So I began working that way, and now I've worked that way for the last 13 years or so.
Excellent. It's a very complex style, it sounds like, and it's fabulous. I mean, there's a lot of I noticed a lot of the kind of Cockney accents going on in your work, stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. Would you consider the cantos an epic in and of itself?
Yeah, I do. You know, I should have acknowledged the early warning signs, because the first time I was going through the cantos, one of the things Pound said, I think it's in Canto 82, is I can't make it cohere. And look, he was a career literati. I mean, he wasn't working jobs, basically. He wasn't working in a warehouse like I was. And if he can't make it cohere, why the hell did I think I could make it cohere? So we reached a kind of, my wife and I were living in this tiny 1-bedroom apartment on Porter Street in Washington, right up the street from Moore Funhouse East, which was run by John Pauker, who was in the Voice of America, and actually it was a CIA front, and Pauker was the guy. This is an interesting sidelight, but Pauker was a guy who with the poet Reed Whittemore and the CIA spook James Jesus Angleton had Furioso magazine with their Yale University, and they published a lot of Ezra Pound in Furioso. So the connection between the CIA and John Pauker was obvious, tactile, and they tried to pull me into that circle at one point, and I really wasn't having it. I was very uncomfortable, and why people think given my politics, I would associate myself with theirs is beyond me. But anyway, so we were living in this tiny 1-bedroom apartment in Porter Street, and kind of broke because we were doing an independent news program on community television, and so we wouldn't be censored. We'd bought our own editing suite, which was, now it's worthless, but at the time it was, I think, essential to send them an edited tape, not to use their equipment. So we did that, and we were basically broke, and we said, look, we gotta rethink this, because our rent had gone up beyond what you could pay for purchasing monthly payments for purchasing a house in certain of the less desirable neighborhoods. So we moved into a less desirable neighborhood and bought a house. And then we prepared to take our one trip overseas, which was to Moscow. And we went to Moscow for a while. And I knew when we came back, we were going to have to open our own bookstore, which we did. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do any writing when we opened the store, because it was going to, and it was true. For 10 years, we worked 7 days a week. There was just no way around it. That's what you had to do, and to make it work. And it was fairly successful. But we dug our way out of this hole. But before I went, I said, look, you've got all this information running around in your head. Write it down, make a poem out of it, at least a draft. So I wrote this thing called Deconstructing the Demiurge Tale of the Tribe. And being Tale of the Tribe being the same kind of epic, look, this is Western epistemology. This is Western epistemology, primarily from Newton and Leibniz on, primarily from the calculus on, maybe a little before that, maybe Galileo's. So, but this is Western epistemology, and I'm going to investigate it. So while I was at the University of Maryland, to back up, I was in the lit department, but I sat in on courses in the philosophy department, primarily Hegel and Kant, and I read Heidegger, and I read Husserl, I read the Phenomenologists, and others, Hume, and I read the British empiricists and people like that. But I was in the lit department primarily. But the other thing that sort of brought it all together was that there was the cyclotron at the University of Maryland, which at that time was considered one of the better particle accelerators in the United States. So I had a friend who was a mathematician, and her boyfriend ran the day-to-day operations of the cyclotron. So I became friends with the physicist. So I'm reading Charles Olson, right? I'm reading Charles Olson, and he talks about quantum in his writings in general, that sort of thing. In fact, in this letter he wrote to Ed Dorn, it's Ed Dorn, yeah. Ed Dorn, he enumerates the books that he thinks a poet should read. And among those books is Alfred Lord North Whitehead's Process and Reality, which is a philosophical work. Whitehead also did Principia Mathematica with Bertrand Russell. But he was a much more expansive thinker philosophically, I think Russell was. And he wrote this book, Process and Reality, which deals with the quantum process, trying to visualize quantum. Mm-hmm. So as my second work, my first book was kind of nascently coming to grips with some of these things. My second book was specifically based on my encounter with Process and Reality, and it was called Ontology of Accident. And and it's never been published. Did I call it a book? It's never been published. but
manuscript.
Yeah, the manuscript. So, and I recently looked at it, and it's missing the last page. I don't know where the last page is. Oh. But anyway, there was that connection, and it was all in the Canto style, because I felt, look, the Canto style is there. It can handle this stuff. You know, you can't take Jared Manley Hopkins and make him handle that material. It's not going to work. So I went with the Canto style, because of course that's what Rudd, who knew everything, translated Greek drama with Pound for years, said, you know, you can go there, you can do this. Maybe it was a little too much for me, but I still like my early work, but I'm really in love with what I'm doing now. It's nice at my age to go, man, I can't wait to get back into another monologue, you know, and different voices that I write in, and you kind of think your way into these different voices. But so, yeah, I mean,
why don't you share a couple of works with us?
Sure, absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
What I'm going to do is I have to do excerpts because they're all too long for this. And this first one is Walt Whitman. I've had a long hatred for Walt Whitman's poetry. And what I find interesting about it is most interesting, or at least one of the aspects, is the guy was full of this American jingoism, which the beats who I associate very closely with now, they come to my mind from the left, and yet they embrace the kind of jingoism that exists in Whitman, whose writing almost acts as though he didn't live in the United States when he wrote it, that he was like this French naturalist like Buffon, who thought the United States was that America was everything was poorly formed and just beginning to form, or whatever. It's like he doesn't have the least understanding of what was actually happening in his own country. And so Peter Doyle, this poem is in the voice of Peter Doyle, who was Walt Whitman's major lover. He here in DC, he was a bus driver. Of course, there were horse-drawn buses at that time, but he drove a bus around, and he was Whitman's lover. And at one point, Doyle was feeling suicidal, and he wrote a letter to Whitman, and somehow his landlady, Whitman's landlady, about his suicidal feelings, and that letter has disappeared. Apparently, I think I got this right, but I think Whitman and his landlady's reply is still outstanding. Someone still has it. It's still still extant. But this is so I said, well, I'm going to rewrite that letter for Peter Doyle, what may have driven him towards suicide. And I'll read just there's a Daniel Mall, and I'll just read 4 pages, so it'll take maybe 3.5, 4 minutes. But this is Peter Doyle. It's called Peter Doyle's Suicide Letter to Walt Whitman. Such be my proposal of love, from which you often turn from yourself, and in way of forbearance turn from me. As in your last letter, so my proposal of necessity, that our desire to be together most lie in a pact with death. Your poems make me sick with grief, that you would so celebrate the source forces that sunder us. Such be a bargain as summoned in that German Goethe's devil worship that Mr. Taylor so kindly provided. I think with more intent to caution than your boastful nature doth consider. Thy need for acceptance blind me to our circumstance, not to turn us out, but to appraise in your palms a false text. So it is no small thing, this persecution. So it be appalling how you pander to our oppressors. In words, truth cannot find. And all already dead to verify, to save, nay, merely preserve your own skin. For salvation broach not such effect as to contrive your sword remain sheathed, lest you be branded of our persecuted tribe. What be thy multitudes, if not a roof for thy 6 bastard children? What angels be these that be but not angels to thee? To castigate those so disposed to marry, or to excoriate Miss Branch for her contemptible lucubrations, raising up the bastard's natural franchise. To praise by enemy, and to utterly falsify what is very born before you. All fact and natural disposition, when I bear witness, driving me omni, so can't be jingoed by the likes of you, what bear little contract with the common like the petty and bigoted you praise. Or praise these at scoundrel Johnson, what set the grey dogs upon freedmen, as they set upon you branded as ham be, and so touched by gods. No Lincoln come to free us like the dubbies, and ask them what asset be this freedom among these shitheels. And for centuries to come, as my eyes be the measure, and not some blind ambition of poesy to myself, and you so far adrift, it goes only in words. Ask! Fucking ask the black man what he see, and from what tree, and before you loot the oratory of Ward Beecher and Cassius Clay. What you and I share when in your poem you bugger Lincoln dead, and not yet in his grave, that little black thing in the white, the dusky spot. And thus the skies charm the public, yet by every kiss stolen you make me a thief. Even now I cannot speak frankly, lest I rouse the petty terror in my fellow men to confirm the dread they imbue with me. I honor greater spirits, more tenderly served every day in silence. I honor the rafters above my door that call me to peace. I honor the rope. I honor the chair kicked out in spasm.
Very interesting. I love the performance. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Excellent.
And it goes on for another 300 lines. But yeah, you know, it's like people read In the Cradle Endlessly Rocking, and they don't get this homosexual reference to Lincoln. I mean, he basically, Whitman wants to commit necrophilia on Lincoln's body. He wants to fuck the dead man. It's just, you know, it's like the guy is really despicable when you really come down to it. But I mean, within certain limits, because homosexuality, of course, was like this kiss of death then. Let me see if I can, excuse me, I'm going to have to like try to get my voice back here.
Okay. You're watching Literary Parrot, not Parrot Literary Corner.
Okay.
Dustin Pickering. Here with Carlo Parcelli.
Sorry.
But all right.
Well, the second thing,
It's a little time sometimes.
This is a slightly longer excerpt, but it's still an excerpt. This also runs about 400 lines. It's I really got a lot of chutzpah doing these things. I'm very confident working this mode. And this one's in the voice of Shakespeare himself, William Shakespeare.
Okay.
And I'm really incensed with this Oxfordian movement to demonstrate that it was not Shakespeare who wrote Shakespeare's plays, or at least not in entirety. It's Edward de Vere, or it's Christopher Marlowe, or Ben Jonson, or, you know, take your pick, Francis Bacon. They have 70 different people that they put up for them. And I think it's despicable because they want to just basically, that's Shakespeare's existence as his play. So they basically want to, it's an existential question to me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I came up with why Shakespeare kept such a low profile as far as a playwright went, as far as a creative mind went. And I try to explicate it in this monologue. It's called London Bridge. Morning's grisly purgation under London Bridge keens me anew for the stage. The heads of Danvers and Blount on pikes with rash Essex bound in a hideous grin, mouldering in between. What mask behind I abide as I pass through Southgate as the cock crows thrice, and hide my true and broken spirit as though these murders be no affair of mine. As man be cipher unto himself, a master temper a seditious slope, lest the author be invited to dance at the end of her majesty's rope. Did you not hear, she cried, I am Richard. Know ye not that? This a breach by some playhouse prat. Dare I escape past hope? Such libel does she from my meaning glean? To bow, yes, but genuflect before a queen? Poor Essex, the raven's jelly gone from his deserted eyes, my testament but furious whistling across his empty globe. The spurious mask that words weave, even upon our most fervent prayers, a layer of counterfeit infamy that our very howlings despair, smash against such horrors that such as it is near break, a poet's fury seek repair. Or such ions be itself the gate of cowards, so we fit to stand in blood ankle deep and drip black ink into it. Neither hero nor sage, but a mere quince upon a stage, a bottom aping a lion's roar, or flouncing a courtly voice, or better as Jacques rot, tick-tock, whore by whore. So it not be your head, better confound rash tears with the nose rag of poesy. It be the perils of state attach me to anonymity. Twin canards, heresy and treason, pox us bards. A vow to keep my flowery considered speech, limbs attached so a man grows as a hedge or tree for ages perhaps, not sage to power, or even Blair of one's own time, but a cathedral to future aborigines. Be wary, her majesty's angst bleeds out, but for me, fop Constable Dogberry, a gawky glance can chance a copper stare. For without a head, what be thy purse? And what pettifoggers and grave diggers emburse? What volley of helos test my folly, as turn the Thames a Styx? For today, I go to try before the queen a play about a wizened king, and stage a mask at the palace, where her majesty's agents, her spies and sycophants, and guards there tend, all eager to ensnare a traitor or heretic, even of a goodly heart as mine, to win her favor. Ignoble men seek careers that would eager grass appear as livery their libels here. Be this a time to get my back up? Essex is dead. Must Hamlet live? Be these ghosts piked upon Southgate, these heads held aloft, adorn my radiant crown. Moore, Cromwell, Fisher, all brought down. For redemption my consorting doth need, as upon the stage my puppets pose and cipher. What as Walsingham's man Phillips saw Babington's treacherous resolve. The heads wobble in the offing. Mary Stuart's Queen of Scots, as blood thins, so thickens the plot. Walsingham and Phillips, the hairs of Saracens, who will entangle my plate of words, as mark I be one, whose plots open-ended and perplexed of nature, though they be, brew plots in air or truth. I know not myself, with rope and dagger decipher me. What by mass convey a plot, as Babington's errant code betrayed the Queen of Scots, and bottom my soul in the Tudor court, and my many confounded masks adjourned to the Tower to rot. And be it to aught as eternal truth, that did not Henry strip away all hope of the sanctity of the crown, much less the Pope. But be those content with contention, but that some honest holiness hid be now required, such that the lights of mere men like I be lighted. Mere as such be the apostles' fear, but endowed to address a crowd from a few hewn planks, as it be upon a cloud. So,
oh dear, that's so beautiful.
thank you, thank you.
Love it. I love the performance. I love the imagistic, stylistics in there. Beautiful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
have about a remaining 5 minutes or so. So,
Wow.
yeah, we went through that pretty quick, huh?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Time just passes right before you even know it. So, if you wanted to read a piece at the end, how long do you think that'll take?
Oh, actually, what I could do is I could break with tradition and read a very short piece. This is from one of the publications I did.
Can you move that over a little bit so we can see it? There you go. I see it now. Okay.
This is called Canaanite in Exilium. It's called Dog Bite in Exile, and it's a long epic I wrote about a first century fictional first century cynic philosopher, Canaanite, which means dog bite. And he's kicked out of Rome, and then he goes on these world adventures. And he eventually puts together an army from all these myths, and goes back to Rome and defeats Rome. And he uses Tesla's. He has a wizard with him, and it's kind of corny, but the wizard uses Tesla's device, which could bring down bridges and that sort of thing. And it created a pulse, and that pulse would just resonate throughout the structure to bring the building down to the bridges. But anyway, I'm going to read a short section and it's kind of randy, but it's about Publius Clodius Pulcher, who was a henchman of Julius Caesar. But it's rather short. It's only about 20 lines.
Okay.
And it goes like this. This give you Canaanite temperament. Let Clodius fuck his sisters, with there be a ring of Augustus about it. Let him confirm A.B. Frontius' bastard, and a plebe, and thicken the broth of the Falcidia Lex. Let him doodle the Aeneid in his own shite at the Cloaca Maxima, when a tribute to one Publius Clodius Pulcher in his noblest patrician scrawl, would it be the mere cowl of a plebeian prick. Did you not, all dear Clodius, slip on a skirt to bear witness to us cuckolds, our Lesbia, our Bonadera? And for good measure, did he not pound Pompeia from behind, what before hinted but the sweaty siege of Caesar's short sword upon her grand citadel? Is not Clodius favored by the people, though only by craft and circus and wit he be thereof? Hail Clodius and his leges, if it brings Cicero to an insolent fate, or least what lack Pella's cushions and victuals thereabout. Hail Clodius, for what be a vaccine of all litters, for what be Clodius but a pox upon a pox? So anyway, I just finished reading Michael Parenti's book on Julius Caesar, and he has a somewhat different take on Clodius. So I believe that's going to be my next monologue, maybe in the voice of Clodius.
Interesting.
So,
sounds fun.
Yeah. It'll certainly, I'll be able to lose a lot of bad language.
Lose some profanity and some insults and so forth.
Yeah. The
manner of the old satirists.
Yes, exactly.
So if you want to say a couple of words for our viewers of advice to, our writers out there, and maybe thank a couple of people who have been inspirational, feel free to do that. I'd like to thank my longtime friend. He's one of the few people who's actually read Canaanite in Exilium all the way through, Jack Foley. He was a co-editor, but we go way back to when I was 20. So like 52 years. So he wrote the first review of my work, of my first book. I like him and Brad Haas,
who's just a brilliant guy on our staff. There's and my wife, of course, Rosalie Gansey, whose editorial work and whose creative work on the bringing in especially women artists and poets who had just been lost for Flashpoint. I mean, other than advice for people, I don't think it would be good to follow my path in poetry. It's arduous.
Yes.
You know, you're constantly reading. I can see you like to. You're widely read. I've heard it. Watching the other videos, that sort of thing. So that and in reading your poetry, you're widely read. So, but the rewards are not there.
Yeah, there's just the
there's,
joy and love of it. If you love to suffer, then
yeah.
But the poetic pains that you feel, I mean, it's something about I can't remember who said it, the poetic pains that only a poet knows of joy or something, or some statement I've read somewhere. That's very interesting. But thank you so much for joining us today, Carlo. It's been a fun and excellent conversation, really invigorating and fun. And thank you so much again for joining us. We'll get that video out to you as soon as we put it up. Again, this is our anthology, The Literary Parrot. If you haven't bought this, you're missing out on a massive volume, 249 pages of contemporary global work, prose and poetry. This book is phenomenal, and it has Beat Laureate Ron Whitehead. It has Mark Olmsted, Wang Ping. It has a lot of verses you've probably never even heard of. So Chizima Ghoshal, a lot of people in here. Brian Kahinde did some visual art. Wolfman did some visual art. There's quite a bit here. Series 2 will be out in December, so keep an eye out for that. We'll have our poets here who've been on a guest on the show between this time and the time that this was released, as far as July all the way down to December. We'll start collecting those guys and their work to include, and that includes you too, Carlo, if you want to join us for that.
Yep.
And so this has been a wonderful program today with Carlo, and we've had an excellent talk about everything in between Pound and Shakespeare. So if you guys liked our program, please give us a thumbs up. Tell us what we did like, what you do like about us, what you don't like about us. We want to hear criticism too. So tell us everything you're thinking and feeling, and we'll definitely address your wants and concerns. If you have someone you want on the program, or someone is out there who's itching to be on this program as a guest, please get in touch. Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. And again, 1 million subscribers. Remember, that means you guys out there who have not subscribed, you're welcome to subscribe. We want you on the program to subscribe to this wonderful global literary arts program. If you're a creative mind, we want you on the program. Please get in touch and donate. If anybody out there wants to donate a little cash, PayPal.me